Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Re-Examination Show. I am Patrick Finnegan, and today we're going to look over these people. Now, who are these people in question? Well, this group of people is called AHA, the Abolitionist Movement. And while I don't really care enough to really tell you what AHA means, you can look it up for yourself. They have a YouTube channel called Abolitionist Rising, abolish human abortions or something like that. Can you even say that on YouTube anymore? I don't know. I was told fetus deletus was the way to talk about it these days. But anyway, I want to go over a debate they had with Joel Berry. Joel Berry is one of the top guys over at the Babylon Bee. And I want to show you exactly what the contrast is between these people. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is the world of fetus deletus. You know, if you have a baby in your belly and you want it gone and you want it gone fast, there are people on the left who like to do that for you. Now, the people on the right, they don't like that so much. They like to defend the little babies. They love little babies. They like them cooing. They like them living, most of all. But the point is, how do you put an end to it? How do you, as the right wing, put an end to fetus deletus in this country? Well, you've tried to pass many laws. There were trigger laws that in certain states that if Roe v. Wade was overturned, these trigger laws wouldn't then ban fetus deletus from your society, from your state, from your cities, all those sorts of things. Or they would impose passable restrictions with plausible reasonings in order to get these things done. In fact, that's what a lot of states did up until that point. But there is a shift among people on the right, especially the Christian right, about how to do that. Abolitionists are one of those people. Now, there's the mainstream pro-life movement, which is more like Lila Rose, who likes to use incrementalism, or Chris Iverson, who is part of the Pro-Life Action League, and also has the Divorce Your Remarriage podcast. I need to get used to my new studio and where my bell is and all of this. However, the thing that people get dissatisfied with is how much time it really takes to get something done politically, especially if it's, in these people's minds, 50 years to do it because of Roe v. Wade becoming a thing in 1973. So how do you do it? How do you uproot this once the Supreme Court has put this in place? Well, Trump did it pretty, I wouldn't say easily, but he was able to do what many people thought was impossible, which was have a Supreme Court turned a certain way so that he could undo Roe v. Wade. And it was amazing. It was monumental. But AHA, the abolitionist people, are not happy about it. And the reason they're not happy about it is because they want everything now. Abolition is the end of their target issue now. That's what they want most of all. And they think that because God says that you should not have iniquitous laws, therefore, because we have evil laws in this country that permit fetus deletus, that is the reason why we have this judgment on us. And if we weren't doing things that would allow for any law, let's say you had a law that, quote unquote, split the baby. You had a law that said, okay, these weeks are allowed to have fetus deletus, and other weeks later on in the developmental stage are not allowed to have fetus deletus. What would be the problem with that? Well, in abolitionist mind, the problem is the fact that you have allowances at all. It's not the fact that you try to end it. It's the fact that you're not trying to end it totally. You need instead to have laws that outright ban it and also punish the mother. That's what they think. And the problem with that, of course, is the backlash is going to be monumental. And backlash in politics is suicide. Can you say that? Can you say that on YouTube? The backlash is going to be absolutely off the charts. So, for any of those who don't know, between the pro-life movement, they don't call themselves pro-life. They call themselves abolitionists. But between the pro-life movement and the abolitionists, they have this fight over how to do it, and the abolitionists get bills shot down all the time because they're not absolutely perfect. They don't conform to the ideal. The ideal being that fetus deletus is out of the picture completely and punished should it ever be discovered. The mainstream view among the pro-life movement is get what you can passed and see if you can gain ground from there to go further and further incrementally. These are often called incrementalists, gradualists, or any of the like. So what I want to do is look at a debate between the top guys of the abolitionist movement and Joel Berry, one of the top guys at the Babylon Bee.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode here on the Abolitionist Rising channel. My name is James Silberman. That is T or the Russell Hunter. And this is a very special episode because today we are joined by Joel Berry, the managing editor of the Babylon Bee, which I assume that is all of you have heard of. So, Joel, thank you so much.
I do think it's a nice token to actually have supporting merch there for your opponent. Shows some ounce of goodwill.
For joining us.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me. It's really cool. We interact a lot on Twitter, and
yes.
It's nice to finally put a face to a name and all that.
Yeah. Well, you've interacted with James on Twitter. I don't believe we've ever interacted on Twitter because I'm one of these people. I mean, I know I look young and
smart
good,
is what.
But Twitter's like a one-way thing for me. Like, and occasionally I forget about it for like a week or two, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm supposed to tweet, and then I put something on Twitter, but I don't really.
I wish I had that problem.
That's pretty wise. I mean, I'm on what we call X now, formerly Twitter, and I don't think that time well spent. I'm usually just reposting things. I'm not saying anything new. I think people are saying it already for me in so many different ways. But on with it.
See, I have a serious addiction.
By the way, do you see the title up here? It says, "Should women be prosecuted?" Which it's not about women per se in general. Obviously, I think the doctors that perform the fetus deletus will also be prosecuted if the AHA have their way, which, principally I have no problem with. And principally, I wouldn't have the problem because if the woman who is giving birth is actually setting up the terms in which her child is going to be offed, then yeah, I would think that would be accessory to murder at the very least. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a legal theorist, but that would make sense to me. So I understand where the abolitionists are coming from that angle. And yet there are people on the pro-life side who do not believe there should be capital punishment for the women who are trying to have fetus deletus in the first place. That I don't think can be fully justified according to God's law.
Problem. And,
I'm addicted to other things. Don't worry about it. It's just not Twitter, So
the church-approved drug.
There you go.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the LDS.
I'm not on Twitter because I'm wafting coffee,
Which isn't the church.
or somewhere. So I like to read the books.
But not the tweets.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time reading books, I guess, but
I've read one or two of those.
no, it's not because I'm not on Twitter as a point of pride or anything. I just don't refer too much to things that have been said on Twitter. You guys will be like,
Yeah, point of pride. Just keep that in mind as you research T. Russell Hunter.
like in an echo chamber. I've seen some things on Twitter. I've got some kind of prep.
Yeah.
But we've not done a whole lot of you and I have not interacted. So I've watched some of your stuff. I've watched some of your interviews and some of the things, and I'm a regular imbiber of the Babylon Bee, and not the bee.
Well, thank you.
So
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate what you guys do too. And I mean that. I know that we have disagreements on certain points, but I still consider us very much allies and really what's the most important, the greatest civil rights movement of our time in stopping this Holocaust of abortion. So
Not sure that that's the word you would want to use in that context. The H-cost is kind of a specific evil, and you wouldn't want to just loosely throw that around like it was nothing or just something to label something with.
I really do it.
I hate how you have to say, well, can you say, if he said Holocaust in the video, can I say Holocaust? I'll find out if the stream gets taken down.
Admire you.
I don't know. The sanitization that comes with terms of service is insane.
You guys and your work, and I'm glad we can kind of have a long form discussion, because Twitter can get cantankerous, and you're kind of limited by what you can say and the character length. And
welcome to Strike Gently. We've got blankets, enamel pins,
the heck is a blanket?
patches, and stickers. Our blankets are one.
And so it's just nice to talk face to face. I think it's better.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I think that different times whenever James was setting this up, it was kind of styled as it's a debate, it's a discussion. It's obviously pro-life incrementalist versus abortion abolitionist to some degree, and some of the things that are going.
And here's the thing: both camps want the abolition of abortion. Okay, a fetus deletus, whatever they want us to call it. But At the same time, the methodology, why it matters is because the abolitionists say that you are participating in sin if you don't support a bill that is all or nothing. They also say that you are participating in sin if you do support a bill that isn't all or nothing. And so they will strike down perfectly good bills that are going to get progress. And then they will also put forward these bills that will definitely not get passed in Congress. So they might get passed in some states like Oklahoma, but they're not going to get passed nationwide, not anytime soon, not as long as our Democrats.
On there. So there is like a debate aspect, and we have no fear of debate. But for me, I think the most important thing is for people to sit down and try to, yes, debate, discuss, iron sharpen iron, all that kind of stuff. And it can be even ferocious at times if you want it to be. But as long as both sides are trying to figure out what's true and neither side is trying to just win a debate.
Notice the one guy has got his legal pad out. The other guy's got his laptop. Which generation do you think they're from?
Figure out what's true and neither side is trying to just win a debate. I think we do end up producing something fruitful here, and people can watch, and even if they don't go either direction or they don't change their mind, they go, you know what? I understand it better. And no one sitting in this video was just trying to like zing the other person with a gotcha. Like I was once in a debate and the guy held up a study and he's like, this study says blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I don't even know what this study means. Like, I haven't seen it. And he's like, well, you should have seen it. And then like months later, months later, he's like, well, I knew that you probably hadn't seen that study and that it would just get you off. And I'm like,
it's debate tactics.
You wanted to win a debate. It wasn't even just bad. He just wanted to win the debate. And I just emailed him back. I was like, well, I wanted to figure out what was true and get on the same page.
He does say in a different debate that he doesn't care about winning debates. He doesn't care about losing debates. He just wants to win minds. The problem is, if you want to actually win the culture, if you actually want to win in politics, you have to win debates.
With you. And he's just like, oh, I just wanted to kill you in front of your people. I'm like, oh, we wasted our time.
No, I love that attitude because and I really am in good arguments. So I'll fully admit that I'm open to having my mind changed, and obviously God and the Holy Spirit has a part to play in that as well. So
well said.
Get at it.
I mean, and I've changed my mind from pro-life incrementalist to abolitionist. So I've already shown that
abolitionists are still pro-life. Just embrace it. Get used to it.
I can change my mind.
So with all that said, let's kind of get into it here. So for those following along, if you were following on Twitter, you would have seen kind of some back and forth between Joel. I think we jumped in on that a little bit, but mostly between Joel and kind of a lot of abolitionists about the question of should the mother who is having the abortion, who's either paying for the abortion or paying for the abortion pill, or however she's doing it, should she be prosecuted? And so that was kind of a big deal on Twitter recently, and which kind of got us talking to Joel.
Now, should, of course, the operative question is, in an ideal moral world, I mean, that wouldn't be happening in the first place, but in the world where you at least have legal ideals, would the person who is responsible for the wrongful death of somebody, the wrongful unjustified taking of life of somebody, anybody, if they're human, should they be prosecuted? And the answer is going to be yes. But however, the question would be, is this the actual case that is going to make the law stick? Is it going to actually stick in court, or is it going to be overthrown? And I think the answer is quite clear that in today's day and age, it's going to be overthrown. It's going to be brought to some circuit court. It's going to be brought to the Supreme Court. It's going to be, or it's just going to be dismissed if you're trying to do a referendum.
Talked about having this podcast to talk more about it. And so why don't we just kind of kick this off? Joel, we'll hand you the floor to just kind of define your position and maybe give a few kind of basic reasons for it. And then we will do the same, and then it'll just be completely free flowing from there. So why don't you kick us off by kind of explaining what your position on this subject is?
Okay. So yeah, I think the one thing that I think is important to distinguish when we're having this conversation that I think gets lost or obfuscated with a lot of the back and forth is, to me, the main distinction between the abolitionist side and the pro-life side is whether or not the mother should be prosecuted. I mean, incrementalism is another side.
Well, the main distinction to be made is it a sin to not push forward AHA's favorite bills? They would say it is, but most normal average churches say it would not be. So yes, that's a question about what should happen to the mother, but it's another question of what's going on theologically if you don't do what the abolitionists say.
Issue, but it seems like the main issue is whether or not the mother should be prosecuted for murdering her baby. And I don't like that I mean, obviously it's very clever branding to take the term abolitionist. But I don't think it
also seems to kind of, same thing with Holocaust, just kind of trivialize slavery. Like everything is the same tragedy. Every other tragedy can be called slavery. It can be called a Holocaust. It can be called this and be called that. And it kind of takes away the weight of the overall atrocities that were the Holocaust and that were slavery. And we should treat abortion like it really is, like it's its own thing, as if abortion itself could be the branding for its own thing. We don't need to borrow from other tragedies in order to make this what it is. You start muddling both abortion and the tragedy you're trying to nickname it for.
There's something that feels a little bit dishonest about it to me, because that's pro-lifers want to abolish abortion too, and obviously your retort would be, well, you don't want to abolish it for the woman. But
hey, birds, how you doing?
I would say we want to abolish it for the woman too. We want to make it illegal everywhere. We want to make it impossible to get an abortion. But our only difference is in terms of the level of severity with which we should treat the mother who gets an abortion, in my mind. I think so. I have a few kind of I divided it into kind of three categories.
So the pro-lifer is kind of put in this weird position where he feels like, if I don't go all the way, I'm totally not here for the babies. I am totally not the strong man in this situation. And these guys are the strong men. They got the big bushy beard, and they've got all the gusto. They got all the young people with them, and they have the trendy laptops and things like that. And I'm just a guy, I'm on Twitter. I'm on my couch. I'm just doing things in my house and, all that kind of stuff, right? But I will say this for the abolitionists. They do have their marketing down. They do act cooler. They do have the gusto. They do have the fire in the belly that some of these other movements don't have, because there's too many echelons, there's too many separations of powers, whereas the AHA is pretty much a grassroots movement. It is pretty much something that is not being funded by corporations. It's people who are Christian, people who are pro-life, even though they don't like that term. They think pro-life is some kind of compromised space. But they are very, very on the ball for organizing, being creative, being marketable. And the pro-life movement, even though they have all this money and all this influence and all these lobbyists, they don't have the same kind of fire in their belly and their gusto that they might. And so the AHA people are willing and able to poach from these organizations who aren't doing quite as much. And then these young people who are promoting the pro-life movement feel kind of cheated, because they're putting in their time and their energy and their lives and their money and resources into all these things, and we're not seeing the bills they want to see. They're not seeing the progress they want to see. They're seeing these 15-week bills. They're seeing these doctor parameters bills. So I get the frustration. Birds, I'm doing all right. Just doing a chill stream tonight, reviewing a debate between abolitionists and pro-lifers. They're both pro-lifers, but the main thing with abolitionists is they think that you're sinning unless you do go all to the wall, everything or nothing. If your bill makes any allowances for abortions whatsoever, it is a sin against God, and it's a cause for judgment, which is why we need revival, which they think is going to come when we stop fetus deletus legally across the nation by passing tons of abolition bills, and then once those are done, then God will stop cursing us. It's totally fabricated in the mind of T. Russell Hunter. So I don't know where he gets this from, but whatever keeps the wheels moving, I guess.
Main areas for why I hold this pro-life view. The first is a legal case, the second is a moral case, and then the second is just a very practical case. And I'll kind of just lay these out very broadly from 5,000 feet. We can get into more details later, because I'm sure you'll have questions. But as far as the legal case goes,
what did your therapist say that changed everything for you? One is, it's not you versus your partner. It's the two.
It's you versus your partner versus the therapist.
I think that there is a lot of confusion sometimes between, what our judicial system does, what our justice system does in passing out different levels of sentences for different levels of evil and partiality. So, obviously we see this in the justice.
Yeah, so one of the things that abolitionists hit up on is partiality. They'll say that it's the sin of partiality or ageism if there's a certain age that the person can be offed at, a certain age that the fetus deletus can occur. And they'll say that that's partiality. And if you allow these laws to happen where you have a 15-week ban or a 20-week ban or whatever, then that's partiality. You're treating them as if they are not equal humans. Whereas the thing is, the political situation on the ground does not permit for such an aggressive move as to ban outright. And then to ban outright and to fail is to kill momentum when you have lots of political backlash. So to do all those sorts of things is to set you backwards. And the referenda, it's not like the people out there, we've done these referenda in states. I think it was Kansas and a couple other states or maybe Arkansas. I'd have to look back, but you would think these referendas in these red states would have led to the end of abortion, or at least a huge mitigation of it. But instead, it led to more permissions, because I think the marketing from the pro-choice crowd is just a lot more appealing, especially the fear-mongering.
The system already, premeditated murder is worse than murder in the heat of the moment. A serial killer is going to get a worse punishment than a guy who gets in a fist fight and accidentally knocks someone out and kills them. So there is already in our legal system, as you guys already acknowledged, there's already some level of there's different levels of evil that receive different punishments, even though the value of that human life that was lost is the same. So when even though someone who kills someone accidentally or kills someone in the heat of the moment might get a lesser sentence than someone who's a serial killer, we're not saying that victim is worth less. We're not sentencing based on the value of the victim. We're sentencing based on the heinousness of the crime.
No, this is a good point. It's not so much the outcome that's what's being adjudicated here. It's what exactly happened in the intent. And I think what he is trying to attribute that to is the mother may not fully understand or something like that, which I don't buy. I don't really buy that form of argumentation. I don't know what would mitigate it in my mind. I think most people know what's going on. I mean, I guess I would be surprised if they didn't. Maybe the education system really is that bad. Because I do have a friend who was in the pro-life movement, and he said before people explained to him what an abortion was, he thought it was just tantamount to hitting a button and then the loading operation was canceled. But what he didn't realize was it's a baby in there. And so once you get a baby in there, how do you get it out? Well, you don't get it out with it alive. You just remove it to end the pregnancy.
So,
by death.
Legally speaking, I think you look at ancient law, and you can kind of see this in Middle Eastern Islamic countries a little bit still today. It was very cut and dry, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. It's what you read in the Bible. You've heard it said eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. And then Jesus came and he talked to us about the inner life and the motives behind. Man looks on the outward appearance, but God sees the heart. And suddenly I think what ended up working into our common law and Western civilization was this idea of not just cutting off an arm because someone took an arm, cutting out an eye because someone took out an eye, killing someone because someone killed somebody. But now in our law, we take into account the inner life, what was going through their mind and their heart, what their motives,
the intent
were, and we take that into account when we sentence people. Now, speaking specifically about the women, I think that studies show about 10% of abortions are coerced, according to polls. Another 50 to 60% of abortions, women report later that it wasn't coerced, but it was against their morals, and they would have preferred to do something differently. Which to me, still speaks to a certain level of coercion. Either they were going to have their support cut off, they were going to be kicked out of their home by their boyfriend. They were scared, they were vulnerable, they didn't want to do this, and they felt.
Yeah, there's a lot of tragic stuff that comes through fornication, premarital sex, where you get impregnated, you don't have the family structure there, you didn't court the guy, you didn't check him out, you didn't see if he was actually going to put a ring on it. You know, it's a horrible state of affairs. So
they had no other option.
Definitely avoid fornication.
I think that the state of a woman who just became a mother is extremely fragile. It's extremely vulnerable. There are hormones involved. And I think, I think all of those things, those inner life things, need to be taken into account when we sentence a mother for murdering her child. And I'll never shy away from saying it's murder.
My heart's fine.
I'm only 40.
My heart is corrupt.
Ignoring your heart health risk is no.
So here's the other thing. I often see abolitionists say that if you treat women differently than a woman who kills her baby differently than a man who kills her baby, that's the sin of partiality, which is explicitly condemned in scriptures. I hear a lot in these debates, the term unequal weights and measures.
Oh yeah, I forgot that aspect about it. They would say that they're treating women as if they are lesser than other people, lesser than men, because we are dealing less justice out to them as if they are, I don't know, something else. The problem is that logic would also apply to children. Then you would say that children would have to be also less made in the image of God because we would give them a lesser sentence. Unless, of course, the abolitionists would do the same thing to children and always try them as adults or make no distinction between adults who are serving or being tried for unaliving people as opposed to children. Birds Aren't Even Real says, I don't know the inner workings other than the basics. I don't hear about abolitionists really ever. Yeah. So this is kind of deeper within the conservative Christian movement. They are growing in popularity. They have a sort of a drive appeal to them. I get it. But they say some egregious stuff. Like they're the only abolitionists who think that slavery is okay and justified in some circumstances. You hear about pro-lifers like every day. That's very true.
And I think there's a little confusion on the word there, because partiality, the definition of partiality is, I actually wrote it down here somewhere. Yeah, okay, so the definition of partiality is unfair bias or unjust bias in favor of one thing or one person compared to another. So, in other words, bias in favor of one person or another is not necessarily partiality. It's only partiality if that bias is unfair or unjust. And like I said earlier, we already kind of treat certain people differently in our justice system, in our culture, not in a partiality way, but just because treating certain people differently is sometimes the most just and equal thing to do. An example is the military draft. We don't treat men and women equally in the military draft. We don't draft.
Good point.
Women. Men's and women's sports.
However, it is kind of disanalogous to talk about intent, because intent can be different from person to person, as well as, but men being men and women being women would not be the same kind of plane of reality. So while it is true that there are distinctions, it might not be the most compelling distinction to point out to the abolitionists.
Sports, this used to be the case, like maybe not so much anymore, but women shouldn't be drafted into men's sports because they can get extremely hurt. We have separate bathrooms for men and women.
The death penalty can also make you extremely hurt.
You have this idea that kind of evolved over 2,000 years since the Greeks and Jesus, this idea of chivalry. This women are no longer chattel, that men are here to use their power and strength to protect and honor and lift up women. The
feminists put the shiv in chivalry.
This idea of chivalry. So, those are, to me, are all examples of ways that we treat people differently based on the fact that they're women, or but for just reasons. Does that make sense? So it's not necessarily partiality to treat people differently. That kind of sums up the legal case. the moral side of things, and maybe we'll spend more time on this because this is much more interesting to me than the legal case. I think the moral side and the biblical side, what God says is the foundation of all this and should be the foundation of all this.
Now, the intent is important. If you look at Numbers 35, there is, long story short, a precedent for a trial to figure out if somebody had committed manslaughter or committed murder. And that would, of course, affect how they were treated. Of course, murderers we put to death. For manslayer, I think the sentence would be obviously something lesser, although I'm not sure what that was, but they wouldn't be tried for death. But Numbers 35 is going to come up later on in my discussions about abolitionists.
I think that when a lot of abolitionists, what a lot of abolitionists call partiality is what I would call mercy. So,
hey, Steelborn, how you doing? Have you heard about abolitionists and pro-lifers? Let me know in the chat.
When we're talking about prosecuting a woman who has killed her baby, I mean, she has committed murder. It's a crime. It's sin. It's evil. A human life has been taken. I believe for several reasons, the legal reasons that I've just listed, as well as some other moral reasons that I'll get into in a minute, that that in that case, mercy is appropriate for that woman.
I think he's a little nervous. At least he seems a little nervous.
And I think that is different than partiality. So the retort that I get a lot from abolitionists is like, well, what about mercy for the baby?
Yeah, so abolitionists, here's a couple nuances. The pro-life, the abolitionists don't consider themselves pro-life. Number one, they would want to jail and or execute the woman who is behind the abortion, which I understand the logic of. And then number two, they think it's a sin to have any law that does not push all the way for justice. And then my argument is that that's not politically practical. It's not legally smart. It's not strategically smart to do that. And so I would say that the best thing would be to get the laws passed that you can pass and then press forward instead of losing all the political capital you once had. This is a split. I don't know how the Orthodox handle it, but this is a split between pro-lifers and the abolitionists. And I think the abolitionists, I'm pretty sure they would have an exception for ectopic pregnancies because, I mean, you rationally, I don't think you can do that otherwise. Do they want to retroactively apply that law? That's a great question. I think the answer to that is no.
My answer to that is that the baby doesn't need mercy because the baby is innocent. Mercy, the textbook definition of mercy is withholding punishment from someone to whom it is due. So we're talking about someone who deserves punishment and you withhold punishment from them. That is what mercy is. And you know, sure. Micah 6:8 gives us this really hard verse that is kind of a paradox that's really difficult to reconcile. We're told to do justice and love mercy. Well, what does that mean? How does one do both? I don't know. I don't know how that works itself out in the legal system or in our lives. I think it's something that we're meant to wrestle with. But I do think that we're meant to love mercy, and I don't see how we can love mercy without sometimes giving mercy.
And then if you're wondering about the paradox of do justice and love mercy, part of that has to do with it's illustrated in the cross, really, because when Jesus died in our place for our sins, he did it for the sake of mercy, but he couldn't do it without justice. Justice had to be dealt out. So Christ took our sins upon himself and died on the cross. The sins that we deserve to die for, he died for. And if anybody turns to Christ, they leave their sin and they go to God, God will change their heart, give them a new heart in the Holy Spirit, and they will be a new creature in Christ. They will hate the sin they once loved and love the God they once hated. And that is intrinsic to the heart of God. God doesn't prefer to give justice first. He prefers to give mercy and offer mercy. Even Cain, he knew Cain was going to kill his brother, but he still said to Cain before he killed his brother, wouldn't you know, I don't want to misquote, so I'm going to go to Genesis 3 myself. But God, oh, it's Genesis 4 actually. The Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? Or why are you angry? Why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, verse 7, shalt thou not be accepted? If thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So God gives a warning, God gives a chance for mercy, and we have the ability to accept that or not today. So I implore you to turn to Christ and ask him for a new heart. If that's not on your heart right now, it ought to be. And if you feel cold or indifferent for the wrong things you do in life, that's because of sin. And so you need God to give you a new heart to see those perspectives. And the only way you're going to do that is if you ask God for a new heart and you ask God to forgive you for your sins. That's what comes down to Micah 6:8. Not just governance, not just polity, but also just ultimately coming to terms with God, closing with God and who God is, knowing that you're made in his image for his purposes.
To people. I think when we look in the Bible, we see a lot of really strong examples of mercy. We have this story, which I know some people, there's arguments over whether this is canonical or not. The woman who was caught in adultery, where Jesus, not excusing her sin, he said, "Go and sin no more." He also said, "Neither do I condemn you," and he saved this woman from judicial punishment that was.
Hey, Steelborn, do you know if John 7:53 and chapters 8:1-11 are in the Orthodox Bible? Because I don't have it right around the corner from me. Actually, you know what? I think I do.
Maybe due to her in the letter of the law. One of my favorite examples is the Apostle Paul. I mean, Paul the Apostle was a murderer. He killed saints in the church, and he facilitated the persecution of Christians. And God not only saved him, he spared him and used him to write most of the New Testament and help found our faith and bring the gospel to the Gentiles. And Paul spoke about this very thing. He said, though formerly I was a blasphemer.
I think you guys do. It's just that you also do a demarcation, kind of like the ESV does, I think, because you got that cross sign on passage read at Pentecost. Interesting. Where is the note? Textual note. Yeah. Text is not the original, says the footnotes there.
Persecutor and insolent opponent, but I received mercy because I had acted ignorantly and in unbelief. And I think that brings up another important point that, there is a biblical case to be made for showing someone mercy, even judicial mercy, when they act ignorantly.
I'm going to speed this guy up because he's taking some time. Taking his time.
Or in unbelief. And we, as you well know, our justice system already accounts for this. If someone didn't know what they were doing, there are times that we show mercy. The other example, the classic example is Jesus on the cross. He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The other example of the woman who anointed Jesus. The Pharisees is this woman who was a sinner.
He's talking like me now. I mean, I should have done it from the beginning.
I guess tradition says she was a prostitute. The Pharisee said, if this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. He would know what kind of woman she is because she's a sinner. And I think about the fact that Jesus knew everything that this woman had ever done, which I'm speculating here, could possibly include some criminal, acts, and the mercy that he showed her, even then, he knew what everyone had ever done. I mean, think about Jesus, everyone who he ever interacted with, he knew every crime and probably murder that they had ever committed.
Right.
And all I see time after time after time in Jesus and his interactions with people and the way he behaved with people is just this overwhelming mercy. I'm not saying that should be automatically transferred over to our judicial system and we should just show everybody mercy. I mean, obviously, we see the horrible damage that does with George Soros, his DAs in these liberal cities where criminals are going free.
Right.
But there's a balance there.
Yeah.
And I promise I'm wrapping this up soon.
Hey, Big Ben Mama. Welcome to this Christian infighting stream, which I'm sure you're going to thoroughly enjoy. How's it going? It's about fetus deletus. It's something you bring about the table. Speaking of something to bring up, so he says, I don't know if it's in the OSB, talking about the clause about the woman caught in adultery from John 7:53 and then chapters 8 1 through 11. But if you want, I can come up and give an argument against the ectopic exception. I'm not trying to start a debate. Oh, of course not, Steelborn. Why would you want to debate? You're I just know a good argument that I've struggled to parse out. All right. Let's do something like that then. Give me una momento. We will drop this in your Discord, and then we will blow up the stream. Why not? It's only early in the day. Where are you, Mr. Born of Steel? Man of Steel, man. You have the link, so have at it. I am interested to hear this. Which part, Steelborn or the abolitionist side? Because they're about to give their retort from their fancy-pantsy little studio here.
Got pressure, brother.
So the other side of the moral argument for me is this idea of complementarianism, or male headship. I think that's an important factor to consider in this whole argument. The Bible talks about how Eve was deceived, not the man. The Bible tells husbands to show honor to his wife as unto the weaker vessel. There's a lot that's in the Bible about male headship and responsibility. I think that men are most culpable in abortion when it comes to the abortion industry, when it comes to the lawyers and activists who actually argued for Roe versus Wade back in 1973, when it comes to the hookup culture that puts women in this position to need an abortion or want an abortion. This is first and foremost, in my opinion, a grave sin of men who have been weak, who have failed to lead and failed to protect women as they should. And God holds us accountable for that as men. I mean,
I know you're saying to yourself, I can't imagine it. What we're saying to you,
I can't imagine it.
you imagine it.
No, I refuse. Get away from me, you freaky old flea market looking people.
Imagine.
When the New Testament talks about Adam, it says Adam is the one who brought sin into the world. The Bible says, by one man, sin entered the world and death through sin. Eve was the first person to eat the fruit, but God holds the man responsible for that. Yep. And so I think there's a biblical case to be made for pointing a graver responsibility and punishment on the man than on the women in these cases. And I think when I contrast that with what I see a lot in the abolitionist movement is there seems to be kind of a skewed emphasis on women as opposed to men. And I know that that's meant to kind of counterbalance what we see, that the victim narrative of the pro-life movement. But it almost seems to be like a 100% like exclusive focus on going after the women, when, in my opinion, the men are most to blame here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Steelborn, where are you? Holla at me, dog.
Yeah, do you mind if we'll hop in here and then we can do a lot more back and forth, kind of as we go.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. We can get into incrementalism later, I think.
So before you state our thing, just the thing that dawns on me while you're talking, I just got to sit here and not interrupt, let's get stuff out.
You probably had so many things.
Well, no, I mean, I do a lot of like street engagement. So like the person saying the thing and then you can, do back
Street fighter.
and forth.
Yeah.
So in order to show mercy to a mother who aborts her child and not punish her and give her like the death penalty, you have to have a law that says aborting your child is a crime. It's a capital crime. And so if you establish a law in your culture saying abortion is murder, we don't just say it's murder, it actually is murder. Anyone who performs the act of abortion, defined as the intentional destruction of a preborn human being, whether they're male or female, whether they're doing it by knocking a woman out and forcing abortion drugs on her, or whether they're doing it, whether the woman is ordering the pill, anyone who performs the act of abortion is committing a crime. So we're not talking about whether or not women should be punished. We're talking about whether or not there should be a law to establish justice and mercy. And
so the distinction he's making here is that anybody who's participating in the unjustified killing of the unborn ought to be prosecuted as a murderer as such. That's what he's saying, and that's the refinement. It's not just we're focusing on women. Although when they talked about it in the dialogue, there is something to the. I would say there's probably a teensy bit of a trolling aspect of it, because they are focusing on women more than either the pro-life and especially the pro-choice movement would, as far as prosecution, as far as making them putting the onus on them for what they have done. And so I see that argument, but I also see that it is kind of marketed the way that Joel Berry has been talking about it.
Only way you can give mercy.
That is to say, kind of almost like we're coming after the women this time sort of phraseology.
To Paul or David, the prostitute, or the mother who's having an abortion, or the man who forced her to have an abortion, is if there's a law saying if you do this, you're going to be punished. And in our judicial system, of course, you can, if there's a law against murder for the preborn, you can have that woman go through the legal process, and out of this, all the stuff you're thinking about male headship and all the stuff about like the inner, like what we know about her struggles, you can hear the whole case, and the jury of her peers and a judge can actually lessen the punishment.
Yeah.
But you can't.
All right, Stillborn. So he's going over what Joel Berry was opening with in his statement about intent and how we use different kinds of punishments for the intent of the actions of the individual. And we're going to go into how the abolitionists actually approach that topic. But you wanted to talk about your argument against the ectopic exception. So let's hear it.
So this was an argument that I actually like. I basically thought I had my positions on abortion entirely fleshed out. And then I started thinking about this. Well, if the reason why we value the baby from the moment of conception is because that's the standard that we know. That's when the body is ensouled, at the moment of conception. Right? So that's when the sperm eats the egg. And it's also after implantation, but it doesn't say where implantation is. For one, I mean, some people make the implantation standard, some people don't. I think it's, at the moment of conception, regardless of the implantation. But if the value, or if the reason why we're against abortion is because we ontologically value the baby equal to that of the mother, is there any way to perform an ectopic pregnancy without it technically being murder? The unjustified taking of an innocent life.
Well, the justification would be the saving of the life of the mother, at least.
Or you could say you could even justify it, but is it not still the taking of an innocent life? And we also know that you can't do evil means for just ends or good ends.
Yeah. So it's not. I wouldn't necessarily put it as evil because, for example, you can be an innocent life that fights off a bear. Now you didn't do anything wrong, but you are putting your life on the line because of the necessity of the situation. And you're going in. Sure, you can say there's a chance. Like there might be some examples out there where an ectopic pregnancy worked out, that they had a surgery that somehow it just worked out, right? Maybe there are those cases.
We don't have the technology for that currently.
Sure. And maybe my understanding is ectopic pregnancy is a fait accompli. It is like determined, it's over. Right?
So there actually have been from what I understand.
So there are.
There have been exceptions where there has been a woman who conceived an ectopic pregnancy that didn't kill her because of it was like based on where it was. It was like I want to say it was like based on where the baby was. Like it got large enough to the point where they could like perform a preemie C-section.
Okay.
It was technically considered an ectopic pregnancy. The baby didn't implant in the uterus.
So it was a technicality.
It was technically an ectopic pregnancy because the baby did not implant in the uterus.
But was it a successful birth of a living child?
It was a C-section.
So, okay.
So
but
the baby lived.
Baby lived. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But like, so let me ask you.
I think the doctors in that case, because they're not looking at the dictionary, they're looking at the actual case they have at hand, and so
I agree
at the
with
circumstances.
that. Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm not making the an appeal to exception argument because that'd be a fallacy. But the argument is from the Christian ethic, right? We can't do evil to achieve good. It's contradictory from our own view, right? Like, I can't, I can't.
Shall we do evil so that good may come? That's one of the verses.
Yeah. You can't grape a toddler to save your grandma, right? Like that would be an immoral action.
Here's the thing. When I look at it as we could have done something to save one person, where there's not just commission at hand. There's also omission. When you have a situation where two people can die, or one person can die, two people can die, or one person can die, and one person can live. I see that as a form of justification in that case.
Well, hold on.
Now, I understand the other side of that too. It's not like I don't see some kind of conundrum here, but I'm not entirely persuaded that it's one-sided in the equation.
Well, it's not exactly this. I don't think it's not the same as one can die and one can live. It's untouched, unguided, unaltered, both will die. That's true. That's a fact of nature, right? However, there's a difference. So like, this is where the violinist argument, you can actually like really turn it on. You can like, I think the way that most of the pro-choicers argue it, they're terrible at it. But you could argue it as a pro-lifer to another pro-lifer with the example of if because the point of the question of the violinist is about what's the term they always use?
Bodily autonomy.
Yes, bodily autonomy. Thank you. Just their whole thing is bodily autonomy. But if the view is not, if you're not trying to use it to make a bodily autonomy argument, but instead it's a mother and her born child, and say, if the mom, and we make it, you'd have to liken it to a pregnancy, right? That was the other problem with the violinist argument, where it was like, you know, you're just going to be stuck there indefinitely, right? It's like, but that's not how pregnancy works.
Right.
But if you were to argue, if you make the argument like, okay, it'll be 9 months, if you pull the plug, you are killing the person. So
here's a difference with the violinist argument. It matters, and this is where Joel Berry is right. It kind of matters how the person got there. So if you are responsible for the pregnancy, you willingly had sex, you got impregnated, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter how much condoms you put on or whatever. You know, so that you
consent to sex is consent to pregnancy. There's no way around it.
Correct. And so the issue at hand is, how did the person get there? Are you responsible? In the case of pregnancy, most cases are yes, you are responsible. You put the person. So it becomes your responsibility to carry that to term, to carry that through. However, in the violinist case, there is no evidence of my responsibility of the violinist situation, which is why I don't have to be held responsible for what happens to the violinist. And so that's the moral thing they like to skip over in that.
Yeah, they do like to skip over like the how did the situation come to be, not like, oh, you just found out you just happened to be pregnant one day, because that just happens to everybody, right? Like,
but two more scenarios, and it's actually in a book by Chris Iverson. Now I posted something by Chris Iverson in my post to my channel, but he has a book on I thought he should have called it Abortion Answered, but he called it Clarity. Just, it was a marketing thing. But the point is, he has got a couple more scenarios to hit up surrounding the violinist situation. Number one, let's say there's a dictator and he gives you a pew-pew and he tells you, you point this at a child and then you pull the trigger, right? Or I'm going to kill you. Now you can be the hero and not do it, right? You can be the hero, or you can take the hit, right? And in the case of a woman who has been essayed and has been impregnated through that, then you only have two options. You take the hit in terms of like what you didn't want, what you didn't ask for, you know, and you be the hero with that.
You voluntarily pick up your cross.
Oh gosh. Well, anyway, Jesus did not have to take it. Jesus did not have to take his cross for us. We could have all died and gone to hell. That's God's choice for sure.
I deserved it.
I deserve hell for sure. What was the other one? Okay, so let's say you stab somebody and they're bleeding out, and then you find out that you have the right blood type for that. And if they bleed out and you don't do a transfusion and they die, you will be responsible for their murder. But if you donate to them before they die, you will be prosecuted for the stabbing, but you will not be prosecuted for murder. So the responsibility is on you in that case for whether or not they bleed out. But in that case, the violinist, what they're trying to do with the violinist would actually apply, because you're responsible for that person being in that situation. But in the violinist scenario, it doesn't apply.
Yeah, the violinist just like I just happened to wake up attached to this person. But
right, it's Saw.
So hear me out on this though for a second.
Yeah.
If the argument is, you know, the baby is a unique, innocent human being, equal in value to the life of the mother.
Yep.
And so the argument that people give is like, well, you're justified in doing the abortion, the ectopic pregnancy, because it's not the intent is to save the mom, but by what's the means in which we're doing that? You're killing the baby. That's what's actually happening, right? So it's not the same as like, so somebody, like, I've had so many pro-choicers try to give me the argument, like, if a mom gets pregnant and then gets cancer and she gets chemo and that kills the baby, Did she commit murder? Well, no. The intent of the chemo was not to kill the baby. It was to save the mom's life. The baby dying is a byproduct of this. It's not even an assured byproduct, for one, but it is a likely byproduct. But it's not murder. That would actually be an accidental death. The thing with the ectopic pregnancy and trying to make the exception for it is it's still the means for achieving this is still the taking of an innocent life. Right?
But
the most innocent life you could possibly have.
Well, there's a difference obviously between the cancer itself and the baby is not causing the cancer, but the baby will cause other conditions down the line that will lead to death. It's not about the baby is the problem. It's the inevitability of the conditions that the ectopic pregnancy brings out of that situation, which causes the death.
So, okay. So then by this standard, if you're morally justified in the abortion, and by the way, this is not my position. I really had to wrestle with this for a long time, so I think I'm pretty good at arguing the trying to make the no exceptions argument.
Okay.
But so if the argument is we're going to make an exception for this special case right here, where it's I'm sorry, could you repeat your question to me? Because I just totally lost track of what I was saying when I made the clarifier there.
Oh, so I mean, my thing is, it's not the baby. It's the baby is not causing the cancer in that thing, but the baby does get affected by the treatment. But in the second part, the baby just happens to be the cause of further complications that lead to death. So that's the difference I see in that situation.
Yes. Okay. Now I agree. Okay. Now I remember where I was going with this. So, so if you don't perform the abortion, is that immoral?
So I'm not solidly in one camp or another because I think there's good arguments on both sides. But what I will say is, you did have the means to make the difference. You had good reason to believe what the outcome was going to be. It wasn't an ambiguous reason, and so in that case, you would have justification to do it. For example, you wouldn't say that if I put myself in front of a bear that I'm committing suicide, right?
It depends on the circumstance.
Right. So if I'm an innocent life per se, and I want to defend my child, and I put myself in front of a bear, it's like,
you're defending the innocent. It's not committing suicide. Yeah.
Right.
Just like the soldier who jumps on a grenade.
So they would say that they're defending the mother in an unfortunate circumstance.
Well, who's they in this scenario?
The doctor.
Okay. Well, no, that's not the same. It's still not the same.
I agree that's not the same, but I'm trying to narrow it down. I'm just putting I'm putting these puzzles in front of your way to hear how you react.
Yeah. So the bear, right, or like the bear hypothetical, or the soldier on the hand grenade question. The soldier jumping on the hand grenade. Well, he's not killing a random civilian to jump on the hand grenade, right? He's not killing a random civilian to save all of his friends. But the doctor is now in this stance. We don't even know what the position of the mother is, but at this stance, the doctor is taking an innocent life to save another. And do I think that there's examples where it can be justified? Yeah. Wartime, for example, you can make justifications for taking innocent life even in war.
Try this. What about a hostage situation where you got the negotiator and it just feels edgy? The phone call, you could go one way, it could go the other, and you've got a clear shot. He's got a gun with tons of rounds in it and people just, on the floor, and you can take the shot and then you can save those people, but the guy sounds like he might be ready to put down the phone at any moment. What do? You got to make a judgment call at that point. And I think
at that point he's an active, intentional threat to people.
Agreed. The situation is different. What I'm trying to analogize here is that you might not perfectly know the future about a situation. There might be an outcome where this works out okay. But in all likelihood, and from all prior experience, it usually doesn't go well. And the best way to guarantee safety for the most, it is trolley problem-esque, right? But the best way to guarantee safety for the innocent people at hand is not that the baby is a malignant force, but the baby's development, because it's going the wrong way, will lead to a malignant force. Not because the baby itself is malignant, but the situation itself that it creates is harmful.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So let's say woman has a crystal ball, right? She just found out she's like 4 weeks pregnant. She has a crystal ball and she looks forward and she knows through the crystal ball that if she gives birth to this child, when this child turns, let's say 15, he's going to murder her.
Mhm.
And there's no way to get out of it. There's no workarounds. Right? Like we're just going to entail determinism here, okay? Is she justified in getting an abortion?
No.
Well, then why is it that when she also knows that the baby is going to kill her in the ectopic pregnancy, she's justified in getting the abortion? Both examples, the child's going to end up killing her.
Yeah, it's because that she's not defending her. Here's her thing: if she knew that, she could also, well, if that's inevitable, the inevitability of. So that's interesting, because what I'm tempted to say is the inevitability of a thing doesn't necessarily justify that. I just see them as different. I'm not entirely clear why. I see them as different.
See, they're fun
But-
provoking thoughts. I like doing these ones because
Yeah, but I wanna-
it's
but I'm-
really hard to engage with it from the Christian ethics.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. It's here's the thing though. When it comes to biblical issues of like law and governance, it becomes a little bit hazier. When it comes to
Well, that's why I argue
Yeah.
the ethics part of the abolitionist argument. I don't argue the when I like, because I steel man their position.
yeah, I'm sure there's something that I'm not detecting here, but there's a difference that I feel, but I haven't articulated yet. But in terms of the baby Hitler thing, that's what we're kind of thinking of. Would you kill baby Hitler? Jeb Bush says yes, and I would say no. And
yeah, I still say no.
but in terms of, I think part of it is knowing that the baby itself is going to die, or is already dead. You know, I wouldn't call it abortion if it's already dead. But if the baby is not going to make it to term, then there is no care of the baby that you're being entrusted with. Whereas in the case of the baby that is going to be born and kill you with your 15, you already know with a crystal ball that the baby is going to be born. And then even if this baby is the most evil baby that becomes the most evil 15-year-old ever and kills the mother, then still that would lock you into your moral responsibility to take care of the baby. Whereas an inevitability of the baby never being able to be in that capacity where you could take care of them would preclude that, I think.
I think, yeah, like, do I think that you can give justifications in the ectopic pregnancy? Yes, I think there are justifications that can be made, right? By drawing analogies, I think there are actual good analogous arguments that you can make a justified, view from the Christian. And ultimately, you're not going to say it's morally good to perform the abortion. It would be what's called a moral tragedy. At least that's the way the church fathers put it. They call it a tragedy. It's like it's something, it's unfortunate.
I can get on board with that.
But it's not like inherently, it's not necessarily sinful.
It definitely falls short of the ideal.
Yeah, but it's tragic. Like war, for an example, or the death penalty. These would be moral tragedies.
Yeah.
Same with so I actually
yeah, you believe in just war theory, I'm sure.
That wars can be justified.
Correct.
Yeah, I think there's wars that can be justified.
Yeah, but we would agree that war is still bad and a sign of the fallenness of man in the world.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
War bad, but war can be justified.
Correct.
So I posed this hypothetical to my priest, and I actually really liked his response, because I was actually talking to him about the ectopic pregnancy example, and trying to figure out what's the actual position that I should hold, or what's the position that am I coming to the correct position? Basically, is what I was asking him. And so I gave him this hypothetical. All right.
Just knowing your mind, it's like I'm seeing your priest, and then Steelborn's walking up the through the narthex, and he's like, "Here we go again."
No,
with
my
the
priest is
hypotheticals.
super based and loves philosophy, so it's really fun to talk to him about it.
Cool.
But so the hypothetical that I gave him was, okay, let's say you're walking down the sidewalk, and for some reason you have a perfectly zeroed in 30 or 350 Legend or 30-06 rifle, high-powered rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me why. It's just entailed in the hypothetical. You have this rifle.
I engage hypotheticals, Steelborn.
I know you do. Right? So you're walking on the sidewalk, and you look, and you look in the way that the traffic is going, right? And so you walk into a corner. The oncoming traffic that's like right in front of you, they have the green light. So the traffic that's going horizontal to you, they have the red light. You look to your right and you see that there's a person having a seizure while driving, and they're accelerating. If you knew with 100% certainty that if you took the shot on the person having a seizure, you would prevent them from colliding with an oncoming car and killing the person they hit, or you don't shoot, they kill the person they hit and they die. Are you justified in taking the shot?
Yeah, so there's a few factors I have to think about when engaging this hypothetical. Number one, personal responsibility. Am I personally responsible to take this person's life? Am I personally responsible to direct the future that has been revealed to me? Is this am I also just in broadly, am I personally responsible to do everything I can for a certain outcome? And that one, the third one, is not entirely clear to me. The first two, I think, are a no. I'm not personally responsible for a driver I'm unfamiliar with and I'm unassociated with. Number two, in the case, seeing as it's quasi prophetic to talk about what somebody has been revealed, in a future tense.
It's not like revealed. It's like you examine the scenario and you realize this is what's going to happen.
So it's not. Well, you said no, didn't you say no?
No, I'm saying like you examine the scenario, you see that if I don't take the shot, the person having the seizure is going to directly T-bone oncoming traffic and kill the person.
So it's probabilistic. It's not actual knowledge.
Sure, you could call it probabilistic, but it's like they're going 80 miles an hour, right? And you see they're gonna just drive right into oncoming traffic.
Okay, here's the thing.
Like you can see it, the way they're coming at.
Then if it's probabilistic, you
like this, like you're
okay. The problem is then if it's probabilistic, you don't actually know the outcome of your shot. Your shot could have the guy go left on his steering wheel, right in his steering wheel, could have him do any number of things from the controls of his car. So then if it's probabilistic, you don't actually know that your shot's going to do anything.
Assuming it's baked in the hypothetical, because now you're trying to get out of the spirit of the hypothetical.
Well, no, okay.
It's baked in the hypothetical, you know that if you take the shot, you prevent the accident. But if you don't take the shot, the accident's going to happen.
This kind of derailed a bit when I was talking about prophetic. So let's go back to absolute knowledge. Okay. So if I have absolute knowledge that I'm going to, if I take the shot that it will save a life, could I do it, or should I do it?
Not even a matter of should. It's, are you justified if you do? Yeah, actually, no, my mistake. It is should you do it?
Yeah, because are you justified? It leaves the option open. So the should, then I'm under the moral ought glass here. So
I ran this argument on Easy's panel one day, and the chat did not like it.
Well, that's okay, because being challenged is good. So I like being challenged because it forces me to think in these certain directions. There is a part of me that is thinking about the lack of direct responsibility on my part for the person. So this should, if I had to lean one way or the other,
if you want, I can make the hypothetical. I have a slightly different one that's a little easier to envision.
It's kind of baby Hitler-esque, so I feel like saying no, but that's my feelings. That's not because I've worked it out with an equation.
Okay, I have one more that's like it's a little easier to engage with, and it's a little easier to think about. Okay, so it's not. It seems less like prophecy, right? Okay. You're in a mall. You're in a shopping mall, right? And you see a man. Very obvious. They're not mentally there, like we'll just say it's like severe Down syndrome or something like that, right?
Okay.
So they're not cognitively there. They're like cognitively like a 5-year-old. They're holding what they think is a toy pew pew, but it's a real one. and they're pointing it at people. And he's saying, "I'm going to get you, blam blam," and then he cocks the hammer, and you have your side piece. He's technically speaking, yes, he is an active threat, but it's not with intentionality.
Yeah, and the previous one was not.
Take the shot there.
In that case, it would seem more justified because that feels more like the Rittenhouse situation. Did you see the debate between Vosh and Destiny on Kyle Rittenhouse and how he got approached?
I did not.
So one of the crucial parts of that debate was how when Kyle Rittenhouse was being physically approached by a guy who was being clearly aggressive and had aggressive intent towards him, and then Kyle Rittenhouse took up his pew and was going to and took the shot, right? And so the debate was, Destiny's like, well, when should this guy take the shot then? If he shouldn't take the shot then, when is he going to take it? And Vosh was kind of doing this, what do you call that paradox of halves and every half of a half or whatever?
The threshold fallacy.
Yeah, so it was something along the lines of the threshold fallacy, where he was just like giving an inch and giving an inch and giving an inch until basically, until the guy would have been basically on top of Kyle at that point. So there are a lot of questions.
There's
a lot
no
of
way
degrees.
Vosh believes that. There's no way he actually believes that.
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah, it's like, you know what, Vosh? If somebody's running at you with a knife, you're not gonna wait till they're face to face before you pull that trigger.
Right.
Not gonna happen, man.
Hey, do you mind if I head back to the video real quick? You can stick around if you want, but I just wanted to get to the debate.
I'm probably gonna hop off and head over to Verbal Combat.
Head over to VK? Okay.
Yeah, head over to VK. You should pop in there though. It's fun having you on there, Re-Exam.
Yeah, no, my viewers are gone. Maybe, but I definitely wanted to finish this up because there's a couple debates. This debate and then another debate that he does with a lawyer on this. But yeah,
I want to get back into the abortion arguments. Nobody will tangle up with me on them.
Well, you could throw it into VK, see what happens. It's just kind of out of fashion as of late. I mean, I don't know what Shiva believes. You could try. Have you debated Shiva on anything yet?
I don't actually think I know who Shiva is.
Okay, well, maybe I'll hook you back up with Shiva.
Shiva's not the Indian Jesus, right?
So no,
that's Lutch, right?
That's Lutch. So Shiva is a Buddhistic atheist, and he is a moral anti-realist.
So then why ought I listen to anything he has to say?
I don't know. You want to debate, right?
No, I know, but if your position is more relative, then why ought I listen to you?
Yeah, that's the thing. Again.
Why ought you debate?
That's the same thing. Well, that's the same thing. Like in my exchange with him, I brought up the fact that like debate is predicated on honesty. Honesty is a moral enterprise, and therefore, since you're engaging in debate, you acknowledge the existence of morality. Because what is debate without honesty, without consistency? It's just sophistry, and sophistry is not the same thing. Like if you're going to have
sophistry is not debate.
Correct.
But all right, you have a good show, Re-Exam.
Right. I might
just
pop
wanted
into
to throw those at you real quick, just to.
No, I mean it's fun. It's fun. It's fun. So what are your answers on the before I let you go? What are your answers on the hypotheticals that you gave me?
To the car accident and the mall.
Yeah,
you're justified in both. It's a moral tragedy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm probably overthinking it.
Not bad.
I'm probably overthinking. Yeah, I'm probably overthinking it and like trying to look at all the variables at once, and that's why a re-examination. Just everything is overthought.
Got to re-examine everything.
Got to re-examine everything. Got to make
that
sure.
Little spinny thing.
I love it. No, it's great. I mean, I've been a talk radio fan since I was 14, so I wanted to get one of these when I got my setup. I mean, the boom arm, it's essential.
Yeah, I want to get a better boom arm. I've got like the low profile one on my desk, and I hate it.
I've got one of those, but I got this as well, and just because I like the radio aesthetic, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, tonight's going to be on Verbal Combat. Gosh, you're I think that's
military and war or something like that.
Military and war. Oh gosh, everybody's gonna hate each other in that one.
That one's gonna be fun.
Yeah. All right.
I voted for the religion and philosophy one, but nobody ever wants to argue with me about that.
Yeah, I think I voted. What was it? Human value or whatever.
Human nature, I think.
Human nature. Yeah, I voted for that one, but I didn't get it, so I ain't participating. All right,
Who is that
Stillborn.
guy, though? Hold on, who is that guy on the screen right there? He looks super familiar.
Oh, hold on.
Oh wait, I've seen him. Never mind, I know who that is. He like goes on to like the colleges and does the abortion arguments, right?
Wait, who are you talking
That
about?
dude. That guy right there, the ginger.
Yeah. The ginger.
What's his name?
His name is T. Russell Hunter. So actually, I am one of the I'm one of the Q&A guys in the debate, not this debate, but another debate that I plan on doing a stream about. And I ask him because, you know, he's a Protestant as myself, and he wants to act like he's, you know, got all together with that. But I ask him from a quote based on Matthew 19. So not to get into spoilers too much, but Matthew 19 talks about divorce in your marriage and how divorce was given for hardness of heart, but from the beginning it was not so. Jesus is citing Genesis 2, where the Pharisees are citing Deuteronomy 24 on abortion. And the point is that civil law is not the same as moral law. And what he does is try and conflate civil law and moral law as if they can operate the same way, and they can't.
It's almost like re-exam that the Bible's not meant for everybody to just read and come up with their own interpretation, but to have a governing body to determine what the actual official interpretation of that text is and what it means.
That's funny because
relevant.
That's funny because I gave you an example of scripture interpreting scripture, and that was your response. So the authority is an aside. But in fact, in Matthew 19, verse 4, he says to the Pharisees, who were the normative authorities, have you not read? So the normative authorities, which were even called basically such by Jesus in Matthew 23, verses 2 and 3, were incorrect, even though they had the authority of being those who sat in Moses' seat, as Jesus said. And
they
yet
had
he
the
said,
legalistic
listen.
authority, but Christ established a church that is guided by the Holy Spirit, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against his church.
Yeah, but they were in Moses' seat, according to Christ. And he said, listen to what they say, but do not do as they do in Matthew 20.
The Mosaic covenant ended with Christ.
Yeah, but they still have the scriptures.
Did the modern rabbinic Jews have the scriptures? Are they Christians?
I'm not talking about modern rabbinic Jews. I'm talking about the normative authority, as you would put it, at the time of Christ, which were the Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees were going to hell. We know that for
at
sure.
At the time of Christ. No. At the time of Christ. So I'll just for a little context. The Orthodox perspective is that the Jews of the Old Testament are actually Trinitarian Christians. The Trinity is an Old Testament concept, not a New Testament concept.
That's fine.
That's our position.
Fine. But
so hold on. The normative authority on Scripture at the time of Christ was Christ.
Okay, I agree. But you know what Christ said? Listen to the Pharisees. He said that in Matthew 23, verses 2 and 3. Listen to them, for they sit in Moses' seat. Do as they teach you, but do not do as they do. I can pull that if you want me to. This is not what this stream was about, but yeah.
Well, so the traditions that they carried on and the oral teachings were still correct. Their practice, the way that they practice themselves, the Pharisees practice themselves, that was what was flawed.
Well, he said that you nullify the scriptures by your traditions.
They adopted and added new traditions. Our view is that we do not add new tradition. We carry on the oral teachings of the apostles.
Okay.
That's where all like the traditions of the church come in. Is these were the oral teachings taught to us by the apostle Paul and Peter and the other apostles, and that's where those come from, because Paul tells us to carry on both carry on the oral traditions, the oral law that I've taught you.
Well, it doesn't say oral specifically. I think it talks about tradition, but Steelborn, why you gotta turn this into a Protestant versus Orthodox?
It's not gonna be. It's not gonna be an ortho-prot debate. I promise. But
all right.
I was just.
It's not that I mind having these conversations. It's just if it was a stream for that, then
yeah. No, I'm right there with you though. But all right, have a good stream, man. Didn't
awesome.
mean to derail that much.
Hold on, before you go, tell everybody where they can find you, Steelborn.
Steelborn on YouTube and X, and yeah, I'm in all the Discords.
You got any events coming up or debates coming up?
I do have a debate tomorrow on Horseradish's channel on I'm taking the negative on the proposition the United States should abolish statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. Okay, it should abolish or should not abolish statute.
The proposition is the United States government should abolish statute of limitations.
And you're taking the negative.
I'm taking the negative.
Okay. Well, I won't ask you anymore because I don't want you to show all your cards before the debate happens. But definitely leave a link if there is a preview link to that video that's coming out then?
I think I'm gonna stream it myself. So
Okay, so it's going to be on Horse Radish's channel. It's going to be on your channel.
yeah, it should be on mine too.
Sweet, sweet. All right. Well, don't forget to post. Send it my way in the Discord, and maybe I can post that on my channel as well, so that people can go over and see it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And everybody, have a good night.
Awesome. See ya. And shall we continue?
You can't do that. You can't show mercy without law. So our position is Micah 6:8. And it's not a quandary, do justice and love mercy. It actually makes sense. The only way you can actually show mercy to someone is if you say you broke this law, it's punishable by death, or you broke this law, it's incarceration for life. But hearing your story, seeing the coercion, seeing the zone, we're showing you mercy. So I don't know how you can actually show mercy if your main thing is making sure that no law.
Yeah. So the key there, and I think you said it right in your explanation, Joe. I think you talked about there's a biblical case for judicially showing mercy. And with that, I would totally agree. Like I think as a juror, I think a juror has the prerogative based on the facts of any given case to show mercy. But what we're talking about in this discussion is not, whether in a particular case a particular juror or the whole jury should in fact do that. The discussion is what should the law be like? What should the lawmakers write? And I think to Russell's point, if legislatively you're saying there is no penalty attached, there's no punishment attached to the act of a mother murdering her preborn child, yeah, there's actually no mercy to show because it's basically being treated as a right. She's saying that a mother can do this without having anything happen. But I think that's kind of jumped the gun a bit there. So let me go back real quick. Define our position.
All right. I have to actually go to the little boy's room. So uno momento, I will be right back. In the meantime, I'm going to let Sport Brand have the monopoly of the soapbox. And I don't have exactly 0 viewers. Oh my gosh, amazing.
And then maybe Russell can do a bit more response, and then we'll just get right into the back and forth here. But for those who don't know, who haven't kind of, because our channel has blown up relatively recently, so we have a lot of new followers who maybe haven't watched a lot of our old stuff. But our position on this subject is that abortion is murder and should be treated as such in the laws of each particular state and in the laws of the nation. And so we would say that there's no class of people, whether it be men, whether it be women, or people of a certain ethnicity, or what have you, who should have the right to kill any other group of human beings. And so on the question of should the mothers be prosecuted for...
You know what? I'm gonna really hit this up. I almost think that all pro-choice people view life as a series of happenstances instead of choices, which would track with the lack of accountability. When he says life, does he mean human life as a set of circumstances, like a critique on evolution, or does he mean? Let's see. Pro-choice people are view our life as a series of happenstances instead of choices. Yeah, okay. So as choices, he must mean accountability, like you're being accountable for the choices you make. Yeah, which would track the lack of accountability. Yeah, it's just things happen, bro. That's it. Yeah.
The killing of her preborn child. Our answer would be, Well, yes. Is it murder? Yes. Okay. Well, then it should be treated as such. Now, that does not mean that we're saying every mother is culpable to the same degree. So we would say that the facts of each case should always come into play. So, like you brought up coercion, duress. If there were facts involved in the case that meet the legal definition of coercion or duress, then absolutely we would say that woman is a victim. She was a victim of that coercion of her sex trafficker or whoever it was, her boyfriend or husband who is coercing her to do that. She is a victim. But in the overwhelming majority where that is not one of the facts of the case, that a mother is knowingly, willingly taking her child to the slaughter, either taking a pill to starve them or going to a clinic to have them torn apart limb by limb, in those cases where there is knowledge of what's being done and she's doing it willingly, that yes, there should be prosecution for murder. And the facts of the case may make it second degree or third degree or first degree or capital or what have you, but legislatively, it has to be murder. And then the facts of each case might increase or decrease what that penalty might be. So Russell, is there anything else you want to address? And then we can go back and forth.
It kind of dips back into the sort of quibble with the word abolitionist. Thing is that right now there's a legal right to abort children, and it is given to mothers everywhere in the United States of America. They have immunity from abortion. There's no prosecution. So
yeah, because it specifically relates to their body. So that's why you get that legal standing. It's a very easy argument to make emotionally speaking.
Laws and rulings and cultural ideals. There's a whole bunch in place that basically says this is something you can do and you will never face any consequences of it, legally speaking.
Yeah,
and so we call ourselves abolitionists because it's a practice that's being carried out and protected by law. And so you want to change those laws and you want to make the laws just across the board. So I think to be able to have like a proper.
I agree that you want to make laws just across the board. That's not in question. The question is, what kind of laws are actually going to stay in place without being thrown out in the wayside? And radical laws are easily thrown out, and then the backlash is huge, and then it's counterproductive, and you get more laws against you. So now you have to fight like 8 times as hard the next time you want to pass a law that's close to yours.
What's the difference between a pro-lifer and an abolitionist? It's good that we're talking about the second victim narrative and punishing women and stuff, but really, if you could just boil it down, it's like, should there be a law that says abortion is murder? Whoever is the principal cause of the abortion is the person who needs to be tried in violating that law. And whatever laws protect a person, whether they're male, female, a doctor, a person with a coat hanger, whatever, across the board, they need to be brought up and tried in accordance with that just law. So I forgot what you said.
It might be true in a level of justice, but it's going to set the movement back is the main thing.
Your general position is the phrase you had, but it was like whether or not, you want abortion to be gone. I think we all agree that we want abortion not to happen. But our position is we do want to establish justice, establish mercy, have those things set in stone without changing a jot or tittle of that law, and then say we are going to uphold this set of statutes, and then we're going to treat everyone fairly as we can as fallen human beings. And I think that you can't even, like I said a second ago, you can't even show mercy without justice. And so you can't punish the man who's coercing the woman to get an abortion unless you're saying abortion, the act, is murder. Like if a man slips abortion pills into his girlfriend who's expecting because he wants her to have a miscarriage, and so he roofies her and then he gives her abortion pills. If there's a law in the book saying that is murder, you can hold that man accountable because he's the principal cause of that abortion. But say a girl is pregnant, the boy doesn't even know, and she goes and orders abortion pills, gets them to her house, and then takes them. And
the pills are a problem. That's the thing is we got to find a way to have a system and we're not going to be able to eliminate all the pills. Oh, well. It is Mr. Bass Guitar. So regarding the heaven maxing argument, I've thought about it for a while. From the other side, being anti-abortion is being pro-hell. Yeah, so here's the problem. The heaven maxing argument isn't heaven maxing. Heaven maxing would be killing every Christian. Heaven maxing would not be, if you take the position that ending the lives of all the unborn is sending them to heaven, and that's heaven maxing. If we just take that position that it's a straight ticket to heaven for all those babies, then you wouldn't be maximizing it unless you also slaughter every single Christian. Hopefully those who are professing Christians who just they're like, oh, they're not really into it, then they just apostatize and say, oh, I never believed it. But those who do have faith in Christ, if you actually want to heaven max, you have to kill all the Christians. So
he's the only person outside.
I would never take that argument.
Side of God who knows that she murdered a baby. She's the principal cause. She's the abortionist. And so you have to have a law that says abortion is murder, it should be treated like murder, and abortionists should be the ones facing the penalty. And the issue is in our modern world, who is the abortionist? You have to be able to put it on trial. Who aborted this baby? Who was the one who made the choice? And so we all agree abortion's bad, but there's the other side that's not in this debate. They're the pro-choicers. They believe that we should have the right to choose to abort our babies.
If you only do one thing to kick off 2026, let
Have an abortion debate.
it be this. Become a FORA advisor. When I moved to Italy full-time, I quit my 9
Blah,
to
blah,
5
blah.
job.
I'm rich.
That's like they're saying we have the forethought to choose to eliminate children. And if you go out to abortion clinics or colleges or arts festivals, music festivals, you run into a vast majority of them that are just saying, yes, I want to do this. I chose to do this. I went about and did it. And they all think that what they're doing is okay. And so the last little point that I think is really important about what abolitionists are trying to do is we live in a culture where for the past 50 years, whether you're talking about the right or the left, conservative Christians, liberal progressives, George Soros people, everyone in power who's meant to establish justice has been telling women, men, old, young, black, white, everyone in between, you're not going to get in trouble if you do this. And so we've instructed the culture heavily that abortion is not murder. And so abolitionists want to start saying, no, abortion is murder, and the culture needs to hear about it so that we can show mercy in preaching the gospel, show mercy to the preborn, so that we can begin to get our culture right, because our culture is wrong. So there's a lot there, but establishing justice is the point. The point isn't going after women. There's a sort of sense where I think you may be able to explain it better. There's a point where it looks like we're going after the women the most. It's because the pro-lifers are writing into their resolutions and into their laws, into their bills, and into all their rhetoric that there should be immunity for mothers who murder their children.
Also, when you say from the other side, being anti-abortion is being pro-hell. I mean, I think being anti-abortion is being pro-heaven in terms of you taking your responsibility. Not that taking responsibility is going to save you, but definitely not promoting the deaths of others is going to be, something to. I mean, it's obedience to God in general. So why shouldn't you strive for obedience to God in all those things? But yeah. And again, I'm not doing the heaven maxing argument. That'd be Avarice's point of view. But yeah.
And at the same time, we know that the vast majority of abortions that are happening in our culture are happening because of the sole decision of mothers who want to eliminate their children, terminate their pregnancy.
And so just to demonstrate Russell's point real quick, and then I'll kick it back to you, Joel, and we'll probably get into some more brief back and forth after that. But Russell talked about how the principal actor in so many abortions nowadays is the mother. And actually...
Right, and that's why they're saying it's not specifically focused on women. It's just putting the focus back on women where they are the sole person at fault.
Right, because of the pill. And so I actually went online to just kind of see how easy it was for myself. And so I went onto one of these websites, and I won't give airtime to the name of the URL, but I went onto one of these websites and I sent them a sob story. I'm a college student. I need help. If I don't get this abortion, my life's going to be ruined and my career's going to be ruined. And I got this about 3-4 days later. I get this to my house, again, in Norman, Oklahoma. And the return address on this is Austin, Texas, right? Those are two states where supposedly abortion has been outlawed, right?
And they're free.
And they're free. I didn't have to pay. I didn't have a single dime for this. It would have been, if I had been a pregnant woman, of course, it would have been easier for me to take these pills than it has been for basically anyone ever in the history of the world to get an abortion here in Post Row, Oklahoma. And so if we're going to say that the woman should not be prosecuted for the abortion, this just is the natural consequence. And you can say, well, maybe let's try to shut down, the URL. Well, then another URL pops up, or then there's going to be some distributor that gets, hundreds or thousands of these into the state and they get distributed. It's like, if there's always a way around it. If you say that there's no penalty for doing it, then essentially what you're saying is that the mother can do it. And if she can do it with kind of just the
So here's the thing. What they do is they'll take any permission is now an affirmation. Any permission, anything, any gap in the law whatsoever is the permission to go ahead and do said thing on a moral level. They believe that whatever the law is necessarily teaches people about the moral law. Now, that's not always the case. For example, if you're a child and you lie to one of your parents, then that's against the moral law. But it's not a prescription that if that's legal, therefore you are teaching your children to lie to their parents. That just does not follow. Now, I'm gonna probably actually have to wrap this short because I thank Steelborn for coming, but I think it's been a long week and I might be derailed a little bit. So I might continue this next week because I want to do a series on these people, these abolitionists, and I want to highlight exactly where they're wrong. I do have a document detailing on how to engage with them, because if you listen to all their arguments and all the ways they use passages, it is actually a masterclass of displaying different kinds of fallacies. Like pretty much every garden variety fallacy is their favorite thing to use and the kind of thing they would do to persuade somebody to come to their side. So, in the meantime, I thank you guys for joining us. It was a very interesting discussion with Steelborn. I think he is correct, obviously, that the good you can do in any situation that you could have done and you just kind of let go, you are responsible for. That does make sense. That is my inkling. It's just I'm always trying to think about what I missed, and maybe that's part of the problem is trying to give more thought than is required to each and any situation. But in the meantime, as you know, my banner on X is overthinking made simple. And boy, do I make it easy to overthink in these situations. But I do thank you for your viewership. And I'm going to try and see if I can pick this up next week sometime. You guys have a good night and enjoy Verbal Combat.